India's awe-inspiring win over Australia last week is one of the greatest fairy tale endings in all of cricket history. Obviously, the headlines is about how a highly depleted Indian team, without its captain and best batsman, all its first choice and some second choice bowlers, were able to summon all their strength to prevail over a full strength Australian team which had one of its best bowling attacks in recent times. Rishabh Pant's brilliant counter-attacks, Pujara's grit and determination, Rahane's brainy captaincy, and a new wave of Indian bowlers blossoming stood out as the top reasons for the much cherished Indian win. Beyond these, lurking in the back, however, is one of the critical reasons for India's win: dropped catches and stumpings by Australia. This is what we're going to look at today. Let's peel the onion and look inside. Whether it was the fact that they were in a COVID lockdown for most of the year, or not training well, or was it the fact that the concentration levels have dropped off due to a lot of T20s and ODIs, it is clear that both the teams dropped a lot of catches. India dropped a bunch of catches in Adelaide, and Australia reciprocated by dropping 7 of them in Melbourne. Come Sydney, both teams dropped almost similar amount of catches. However, in Brisbane, India dropped more catches, but Australia did also miss one stumping. So overall, you might come to the conclusion that it all kind of evens out and the difference is not too obvious. Let us go further deep though. Let us look at the cost of these catch drops or missed stumpings, which is very critical to understand, and that's where the story really comes alive. For all the catches that Australia has dropped, the cost of it is 314 runs. This is the total number of runs scored by the Indian batsmen after their catch was dropped. The corresponding cost of India's catch drops is actually 325 runs scored by Australia. So 314 versus 325, again, not much to choose. Let us look at the indirect cost. What is indirect cost? If a catch is dropped, the partnership is not broken either. So the indirect cost takes into account the entire team score from the time that the catch was dropped to the time when that batsman actually gets out. For example, if Kohli were to be dropped at 5 and the score was 50 for 2, and then he goes on to make 40 runs and gets out at 120 for 3, the direct cost is 35 and the indirect cost is 70. In this metric, in this series, India's cost is higher than Australia's. India the indirect cost was 610 versus 500 for Australia, which again doesn't explain why India won because of the dropped catches. However, the story climaxes when you look at the context of whose catches were dropped and when. In the first test, even though India took a lead of 53 runs in the first innings, they dropped a bunch of catches, especially off the two top scorers in that innings, Tim Paine and Marnus Nabushin, costing them 85 runs. If they had held on to those catches, India could have actually bowled Australia out for much cheaper, taken a bigger lead, and have possibly have gone into bat at the end of day 2 instead of the deadly morning of day 3 where they were eventually bowled out for a historic 36. Now moving on to the second test match. India were flawless in this match. Australia was shoddy. Australia dropped Shubman Gill twice and Rahane the Centurion twice too. Failing to take early wickets and not being able to stop the Centurion were huge mistakes that they paid by losing the match. In Sydney, both the teams dropped an equal amount of catches. However, India's drops were not that costly. They gave some extra runs to Labuschagne, but in the larger scheme of things, that did not hurt them as much as they were trying to draw the match. But Australia really screwed up. They dropped Rishabh Pant in the fourth innings when he was on 3, and then again at 56. He went on to score 97. They also dropped Ashwin when there were 31 overs still to be bowled in the final day. If they had caught just that catch, they had enough time to bowl India out and the whole series would have taken a totally different turn. The Brisbane Test match was certainly the most evenly matched one in the series. India made a huge mistake by dropping Labuschagne when he was on 37 and he went on to score 71 more runs to make 108. That was very costly. But luckily for India, it happened in the first innings, then they were able to make up for lost ground and catch up. However, Australia, mainly Tim Payne here, missed a crucial stumping to get Rishabh Pant out when he was on 16. It was not an easy chance, but definitely a chance. Pant, of course, went on to score the match winning 89 not out and clinch the series for India. So when it came down to the critical direct cost of dropped catches or stumpings, Indian fielders gave away 184 runs, whereas Australia gave away 292. That 108 run difference was enough to tilt the scales towards India. Even though this is not the primary reason for India's win, it clearly was a huge factor. Tim Payne himself dropped 5 catches and the stumping of punt in the whole series. Dropped catches also win matches. Thank you and see you next time.